What would you do if the man you built an empire for called you useful, like a calculator, like a tool he borrowed and forgot to return? Grace Hartford gave her husband everything. Her career as a financial analyst, her savings, 72 hours straight restructuring his debt while 4 months pregnant. She turned his failing company into a $50 million empire, and he thanked her by planning to divorce her the minute their baby was born. But here's what Blake didn't know. The woman he underestimated, she was about to become his worst nightmare. 3 weeks after he left her, Grace was spotted shopping in the Hamptons with billionaire heiress Caroline Ashworth. The photo went viral. Blake panicked. And that's when Grace's real game began. This is the story of a woman who stayed silent until she had power, who turned her pain into leverage, who proved that sometimes the quietest voice makes the loudest statement. This is about a woman who didn't just survive, she won. And she did it without losing herself. Stay with me, because what Grace did next, it changed everything. Grace Sullivan Hartford had perfected the art of the Sunday roast. 10 years of marriage had taught her that much. She slid the golden chicken from the oven, its skin crackling perfectly, and arranged it on the antique serving platter Blake's mother had given them as a wedding gift. The Belmead Mansion's dining room gleamed under the crystal chandelier, every fork aligned, every wine glass spotless. She was 4 months pregnant, barely showing. Just a small curve beneath her silk blouse that she could hide with the right angle. Blake sat at the head of the table, checking his phone for the third time in 10 minutes. His mother Margaret occupied the seat to his right, lips pursed in perpetual disappointment. Todd, Blake's older brother, sat across with his wife Emily, making small talk about their recent vacation to Aspen. Grace placed the chicken down and took her seat. Nobody looked up. "Grace, you've outdone yourself," Emily said, though her eyes stayed on her phone. "This looks wonderful." "Thank you," Grace said quietly. Blake's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a small smile playing at his lips before he caught himself. Grace noticed. She always noticed. "Blake, we're eating," Margaret said sharply. "Put that away." "Sorry, Mom, important client." He set the phone face down on the table but kept his hand near it. Grace began serving, placing perfectly portioned slices of chicken on each plate. Her hands moved mechanically. Muscle memory from countless family dinners, just like this one. "At least you'll finally give us an heir worth celebrating," Margaret said, watching Grace's hands. "4 months along now, right?" "Yes, ma'am, due in October." "A boy, I hope. The Hartford name needs proper continuation." Margaret took a sip of wine. "When I was pregnant with Blake, I knew immediately it was a boy. A mother knows these things." Grace's phone, forgotten on the side table, lit up with a notification. Instagram, Amber Sinclair's story appeared on the screen for just a moment. Champagne glasses. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings." Grace recognized the wallpaper in the background. She'd picked it herself 3 years ago when they had redecorated Blake's downtown office. Charcoal gray with thin silver pinstripes. Her hand trembled as she poured green beans onto Margaret's plate. "Grace, are you feeling all right?" Emily asked. "You look pale." "I'm fine, just tired." Grace set down the serving spoon carefully. Pregnancy makes everything exhausting. Blake's phone lit up again. He grabbed it quickly, standing. "I'm sorry, I really need to take this. Big deal closing tomorrow." He disappeared into his study before anyone could protest. Grace continued serving dinner to people who barely acknowledged her presence. She smiled. She nodded. She played the perfect hostess while her husband took a call from another woman in the next room. 10 years ago, Blake had been different. Or maybe Grace had been different. Maybe they'd both been different people who'd somehow become strangers sharing a mortgage. She remembered their wedding day, a small ceremony at the courthouse because Blake couldn't afford anything more. He'd been $20,000 in debt, fresh out of business school, full of dreams and terror in equal measure. "I can't believe you're marrying me," he'd said, adjusting his rental tux in the courthouse bathroom. "I'm broke, Grace. I have $200,000 in debt and a business plan that might never work." "I believe in the dream," she told him, straightening his crooked bow tie. "More importantly, I believe in you. We'll build this together. If this company works, it's because of you," Blake had said, taking her hands. "You're the smart one. I'm just the guy who can sell ice to people who live in igloos." Grace had laughed. "You're more than that. You just don't see it yet. I'll never forget this, Grace. Never forget what you're sacrificing for me. But he had forgotten, or maybe he'd chosen to forget. Grace couldn't decide which was worse. Blake returned 20 minutes later, his dinner cold. He ate mechanically, contributing nothing to the conversation. After dessert, after Margaret's thinly veiled criticisms about the coffee being too weak, after everyone finally left, Grace found herself alone in the Kit Cooper loading the dishwasher. Blake appeared in the doorway. I'm going to bed. Early flight to Atlanta tomorrow. You're leaving tomorrow? Grace asked, not looking up from the dishes. I told you about this. Big investor meeting. I'll be gone 3 days. Grace didn't remember him mentioning it, but then again, she didn't remember the last time they'd had a real conversation. Okay, she said simply. Blake lingered for a moment, as if waiting for her to say more. When she didn't, he disappeared upstairs. Grace finished the dishes in silence. She wiped down the counters. She turned off all the lights. She climbed the stairs to their bedroom, each step feeling heavier than the last. Blake was already in bed, facing the wall. Grace changed into her nightgown and slid under the covers. The baby kicked gently, a flutter against her palm when she rested her hand on her belly. Blake, she whispered into the darkness. Can we talk? It's late, babe. Can it wait? You've been working late every night this week, and weekends. I barely see you anymore. Blake sighed, the sound heavy with irritation. I'm building an empire for us, Grace. For our son. How do you know it's a boy? It better be. The Hartford name needs... I saw Amber's Instagram tonight, Grace interrupted, her voice barely audible. She was in your office. Silence. Then Blake rolled over, his face illuminated by the moonlight through their bedroom window. His expression was cold. So? So you said you were meeting with the zoning commission until 9 o'clock. Amber is the zoning liaison for the Midtown project. What's your point? Grace felt her throat tighten. Nothing, I worry. You worry? Blake sat up now, his voice rising. You're checking my employee's Instagram like some paranoid teenager? This is exactly why I don't tell you about work anymore. You make everything into drama. I'm not making anything into drama. You're what? Accusing me of something? While you're pregnant with my child? Jesus, Grace, your hormones are making you crazy. The word hit like a slap. Crazy. I'm sorry, Grace heard herself say. You're right. I'm just emotional lately. Blake's expression softened, but his eyes remained hard. I know, baby. It's okay. He reached over and touched her belly. I'm doing this for him. For our family, I need you to trust me. Grace nodded, even though trust felt like a foreign concept. I have to fly to Atlanta tomorrow morning, Blake said, lying back down. Big investor meeting. I'll be gone 3 days. You already told me. Grace's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Did I? Blake was already turning away again. Get some sleep. You need rest. Grace lay awake long after Blake's breathing evened into sleep. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if sensing her distress. I'm sorry, baby, Grace whispered into the darkness. Mommy's probably just being crazy. But she wasn't crazy. She knew what she'd seen. She knew what her instincts were screaming. The question was, what was she going to do about it? Grace sat in Dr. Patricia White's examination room, paper crinkling beneath her as she shifted on the table. The ultrasound monitor showed her baby's heartbeat, a steady thump, thump, thump that should have brought her comfort. Baby looks perfect, Dr. White said, moving the wand across Grace's gel-covered belly. Strong heartbeat, good size for 18 weeks. But Grace, your blood pressure is elevated, 140/95. That's concerning. I've been stressed, Grace admitted. Dr. White set down the ultrasound wand and turned to face her patient directly. Stress isn't good for the baby. What's going on at home? Grace opened her mouth to say everything was fine. The words stuck in her throat. I need you to monitor this closely. Dr. White continued when Grace didn't answer. High blood pressure at 4 months can lead to preeclampsia later. You need to find ways to reduce stress. Talk to Blake. Get support. Grace nodded, knowing she couldn't, knowing she wouldn't. She left the doctor's office and drove aimlessly through downtown Nashville. Her route took her past Blake's office building on 3rd Avenue. His black Tesla sat in the parking garage, the car that was supposed to be in Atlanta. Grace's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She pulled into a parking spot across the street, turned off the engine, and waited. 2 hours passed. Grace needed to use the bathroom desperately, her pregnancy bladder protesting, but she couldn't leave. Not yet. Not without knowing. At 2:15 in the afternoon, Blake emerged from the building. Amber Sinclair walked beside him, laughing at something he'd said. Blake's hand rested on her lower back, fingers splayed possessively across the fabric of her dress. They climbed into Amber's white Mercedes SUV. She drove. Grace followed them through Nashville traffic, staying 2 cars back. Every red light felt like torture. Every turn made her heart race faster. They drove to the Gulch, to a luxury high-rise Grace had never seen before. Blake used a key fob to access the building. They disappeared inside. Grace parked down the block and waited. Minutes turned to hours. The sun moved across the sky. Grace's bladder screamed for relief, but she refused to leave. At 5:47, Blake's name appeared on her phone screen. Grace stared at it, watching it ring once, twice. She composed herself, taking deep breaths. On the third ring, she answered. "Hello? Hey, babe." Blake's voice was cheerful, energetic. "Just landed in Atlanta. Crazy day of meetings. Exhausted. How was your doctor appointment?" Grace looked at the luxury high-rise where her husband had been for the last 3 hours. "Good," she heard herself say, her voice steady. "Baby's healthy." "That's my girl. I knew everything would be fine. Listen, I'm heading to the hotel now. I'll call you tonight after dinner, okay?" "Love you." "Love you, Grace Markham," Grace whispered, but the line went dead. Grace sat in her car and cried until her eyes swelled shut. Then she drove to East Nashville, to a small office above a pawn shop, and hired a private investigator named Margaret Rodriguez. Maggie, as she insisted Grace call her, was 52 years old with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She'd been doing this work for 20 years, she explained. She'd seen everything. "Your husband is suddenly working late," Maggie said, not as a question, but as a statement. "His phone is password protected when it never was before. He accuses you of being paranoid when you ask questions." Grace nodded, tears forming again. "Honey, I've been doing this 20 years. I see this every single day. Men like him don't change, they just get better at hiding." The retainer was $2,500. Grace had a secret emergency fund, $5,000 left to her by her grandmother. Blake didn't know all about it, and she handed over half. "I should have proof within 48 hours, Maggie said. "Most cases I'm done in 2 days. But while I'm digging into his personal life, want me to look at the business too?" "Why would you look at the business?" "Because men who lie to their wives usually lie to their investors too. Hartford Development is publicly traded now, right? Financials are public record. If there's any funny business in the books, that's leverage in divorce court." "I don't want revenge," Grace said quickly. "I just want to know the truth." Maggie smiled sadly. "Sure, honey, but when you're ready for more than truth, you call me." She handed Grace a manila folder. "Take this home. I noticed some weird patterns in Hartford Development's 2021 audit. Probably nothing, but you were a financial analyst before you married him, right?" "How did you know that?" "I'm good at my job," Maggie said, winking. "Look it over when you're ready." 2 days later, Grace sat in Maggie's office staring at 43 photographs spread across the desk. Each one felt like a knife. Blake and Amber at Merchant's restaurant, sitting in the booth where Blake had proposed to Grace 10 years ago. Amber wearing a Cartier bracelet. Grace remembered finding the receipt. $8,000. Blake had claimed he lost his credit card and someone made fraudulent charges. The luxury condo building. Lease documents showing Blake's LLC as the owner. Blake entering the condo at 7:13 in the morning, spending the night. "I'm sorry, Grace," Maggie said softly, but the photographs weren't even the worst part. Maggie slid an iPad across the desk. "I accessed his iCloud backup. He's not tech savvy. Used the same password as his Netflix account." Text messages filled the screen. Grace read them with shaking hands. "Blake to Amber, 3 weeks ago. Can't wait till the baby's born and we can be together openly." Amber to Blake. "Does she still think you love her?" Blake. "She's useful. She manages the house, the family stuff, all the things I'm too busy for. Plus, her financial brain saved my behind in 2019 when I almost went bankrupt. But yeah, she's boring as hell now. You're my excitement. Amber, October can't come fast enough. Blake, after the heir arrives, I'll file. She'll get the house in Connecticut, some cash, and I'll keep the business. Prenup is ironclad. Grace read the word useful 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It carved itself into her brain, burning like acid. She'd spent 72 hours straight in 2019 restructuring Blake's debt. She'd built a financial model that turned his failing company into a $40 million empire. She'd sacrificed her career, her identity, her youth. And he'd reduced her to a word, useful, like a calculator, like a stapler he'd borrowed and forgotten to return. Grace, honey, Maggie said gently, breathe. But Grace couldn't breathe. The walls of the small office were closing in. She grabbed her purse and stumbled out to her car, Maggie calling after her with concern. Grace sat in the parking lot for an hour, maybe longer. Time felt meaningless. Her hand rested on her belly, feeling the babe kick and squirm, oblivious to the chaos surrounding him. I know, baby, she whispered. I know, Mama's going to figure this out. But she had no idea how. That Sunday, Grace drove to her mother's house. Diane Sullivan's modest suburban home smelled like fried chicken and green beans, exactly the way Grace remembered from childhood. You've barely touched your plate, sweetheart, Diane said, watching Grace push food around. You're eating for 2 now. I need to tell you something, Mama. Grace showed her mother some of the photographs, not the text messages. Those were too painful to share. Diane gasped, then pulled Grace into a fierce hug. Oh, honey, oh, sweetheart. I don't know what to do, Grace sobbed into her mother's shoulder. Have you talked to him? Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Grace pulled back. Mama, there's no misunderstanding. He has an apartment for her. He's been lying for months, maybe years. Diane's face crumpled with sadness, but then she composed herself. Every marriage has rough patches, sweetheart. Your father and I went through hell in year 7. He was drinking, I was working night shifts, we barely spoke, but we got through it. This isn't a rough patch. But think of the baby, Grace. A child needs a father. Blake provides so well. You have that beautiful house, the cars, everything. This is just a phase. Men go through phases. A phase? Grace couldn't believe what she was hearing. He's keeping a mistress? Don't use that word. It sounds so cheap. Diane wrung her hands. She's just a distraction. When the baby comes, he'll remember what matters. The doorbell rang before Grace could respond. Pastor James Mitchell stood on the porch, summoned by Diane without Grace's knowledge. You didn't, Grace said. He can help, honey. He's counseled dozens of couples. The next hour was torture. Pastor Mitchell, well-meaning but misguided, spoke about forgiveness and endurance, about how divorce was also a sin in the eyes of God, about how silence could be strength. So I should forgive him? Grace finally asked, standing up. Just stay quiet and take it? Grace, don't be dramatic, her mother said. I'm 4 months pregnant with his child. He's planning to divorce me the minute I give birth. And you want me to forgive him? To endure? I want you to think of your child, Pastor Mitchell said gently. Growing up in a broken home. Better a broken home than a home where his mother is treated like she's nothing. Grace grabbed her purse and left. She sat in her car in her mother's driveway, crying so hard she couldn't see. Her phone buzzed. Blake's name appeared. Text message. Dinner at Mom's tonight. Don't forget, wear the blue dress. Grace stared at the text for a long time. Then she dried her eyes and drove home to change clothes. Because that's what she did. She played her role. She wore the blue dress. She smiled at Blake's mother's passive-aggressive comments. She pretended everything was fine, but inside she was breaking. 3 days later, Grace hired a divorce attorney. Before she could file papers, Blake's lawyer called and requested a meeting. Grace walked into the conference room alone. Blake sat across from her with his attorney, Arthur Pendleton, a man in his 60s wearing a suit that cost more than Grace's car. Mrs. Hartford, Arthur said smoothly, please sit. Grace sat, staring at the husband who'd become a stranger. We're proposing a clean break, Arthur continued. Mr. Hartford has been more than generous. He slid papers across the polished table. Settlement offer, $500,000. The Bellmead house worth $1.2 million, but mortgage for $800,000 and child support of $3,000 per month. Hartford development, valued at $50 million, wasn't mentioned. Grace got nothing. I helped build that company, Grace said quietly. The prenuptial agreement is clear, Arthur replied. All business assets acquired during the marriage remain separate property of the acquiring party. You signed this 10 years ago. I was 28. Blake said it was just a formality because he had debt. I didn't have a lawyer. That's not our problem. The prenup is ironclad. Grace flipped through the pages. Non-disparagement agreement, non-disclosure agreement, gag orders preventing her from speaking to press, discussing the marriage, or mentioning Amber Sinclair's name. I need this done by Friday, Blake said, speaking for the first time. His tone was businesslike, cold. I have a board meeting Monday. I can't have this dragging out. You're in a hurry to marry her? I'm in a hurry to move on. You should be too. What if I don't sign? Arthur leaned forward. Then we go to court. Lengthy, expensive. Your blood pressure is already elevated. Your doctor noted it in your file. Court stress could endanger the pregnancy. Is that what you want? Just sign it, Grace, Blake said. Take the money, keep the house, raise our son. I'll be a good father. Weekend visits, holidays. But we're done. Grace looked at the man she'd loved for 10 years, the man she'd rebuilt her life for. She saw nothing of that person now, just a cold stranger in an expensive suit. She picked up the pen. She signed every page without reading the rest. Her signature, Grace Sullivan. She dropped the Hartford immediately. Smart choice, Blake said. I knew you'd be reasonable. Grace stood, walked to the door, and turned back. Blake? Yeah? Hope she makes you happy. I really do. Because you're going to need something to hold on to when you realize what you lost. Blake scoffed. What I lost? Grace, I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm 42. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm about to marry a pageant queen. What exactly did I lose? You'll see, Grace said and walked out. She made it to her car before the sobs came. 2 weeks later, Blake made it official. His Instagram post appeared while Grace was packing boxes in the Bellmead house, preparing to move into a smaller apartment she could actually afford. The photo showed Blake and Amber on his yacht in Key West. The caption read, New beginnings. When you know you know. Engaged. 12,000 likes in 2 hours. Comments flooded in. Congrats! She's gorgeous. Power couple. Amber posted her own announcement minutes later. Close-up of an 8-carat diamond ring. Caption. When God closes a door, he opens a champagne bottle. #blessed, future Mrs. Hartford. The dress she wore in the photo made Grace's stomach turn. A red Hervé Léger bandage dress. The same one Grace had worn to their rehearsal dinner 10 years ago. Blake had kept it. Grace's phone buzzed constantly. Friends sending screenshots. Former acquaintances offering hollow sympathy. Unknown numbers. Reporters hoping for a statement. Her friend Jessica texted, Grace, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Ryan and I are coming over. Grace typed back, I'm fine, don't come. I need to be alone. Jessica, people are talking. The charity gala committee removed you from the spring fundraiser. They said it would be awkward since Blake is the title sponsor. Grace stared at the message. She'd volunteered for the Children's Hospital Gala for 5 years. She was supposed to be honored at the spring event for her contributions. Now Blake had donated $100,000 to have her name erased from the program. She pulled up the charity's website. The revised program loaded slowly. Grace's name, gone. In her place, Blake Hartford, Philanthropist of the Year. She looked down at her growing belly, 20 weeks now, halfway through her pregnancy, alone in a house too big and too empty, surrounded by moving boxes and broken dreams. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing her distress. It's just you and me now, baby, Grace whispered. Just us. But it got worse. Someone, Grace never found out who, posted side-by-side photos on social media. On the left, Grace 3 weeks earlier, captured by paparazzi while loading groceries into her car. She'd been wearing sweatpants and no makeup, visibly pregnant, looking exhausted. Caption: Blake Hartford's sad ex-wife. On the right, the new photo of Grace and Amber on the yacht. Amber in a bikini, perfect makeup, model thin. Caption: The upgrade. The post went viral. 50,000 shares in 6 hours. Hashtags, #before and after hashes traded up. Sorry, not sorry. Grace scrolled through comments until her eyes burned. She let herself go. No wonder he left. Pregnancy isn't an excuse to look like that. Blake deserves someone who takes care of themselves. Grace closed the app, but the damage was done. The world had decided she was the discarded wife, the boring one, the one who deserved to be left behind. She sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by boxes, and did something she hadn't done in years. She called Carolyn Ashworth. Carolyn had been her college roommate at Vanderbilt. They'd been inseparable until Blake slowly, methodically isolated Grace from everyone she'd loved. It had happened so gradually, Grace barely noticed. A missed lunch here, a declined invitation there, until one day Grace realized she had no friends left. Just Blake's friends, Blake's family, Blake's world. The phone rang 3 times. Grace almost hung up. This is Caroline. Caroline, it's Grace, Grace Sullivan. We went to Vanderbilt together. Grace, oh my God, Grace. Holy crap. I've been following the news. Where are you? I'm so sorry to bother you, Grace said, her voice breaking. I just didn't know who else to call. Tell me where you are, right now. Nashville, I'm packing. I have to move out of my house because I can't afford. Stop packing. I'm sending a car. You're coming to the Hamptons. Carolyn, I can't. I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm broke. You're not broke. You have $500,000, right? And more importantly, you have me. Grace, listen to me. You're coming here, no arguments. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's what friends do, and we were friends, Grace. Before that jerk isolated you from everyone who actually loved you. Grace remembered something then, a memory from senior year at Vanderbilt. Caroline's father had died suddenly. The Ashworth Hotels board tried to push 22-year-old Caroline out, claiming embezzlement. They'd forged documents, created a paper trail, making Caroline look guilty. Grace had spent 3 weeks analyzing financial records, barely sleeping. She'd found the digital trail proving Caroline's uncle had orchestrated everything. You saved my life once, Caroline said now. Now it's my turn. A car will be there tomorrow morning. 6 a.m., pack light, everything you need I have. Carolyn, Suquemaya, Grace Sullivan, the woman who saved my family's legacy. You're coming to my house, you're going to rest, and then we're going to destroy the man who thought he could throw you away like garbage. Deal? Grace, crying and laughing at the same time, said, Deal. The next morning, a black Mercedes picked up Grace at 6 a.m. She climbed into the back seat with one suitcase and a heart full of fragile hope. The 2-hour flight to New York passed in a blur. Then a 2-hour drive through the Hamptons, past massive estates and ocean views that looked like magazine spreads. The car pulled up to Ashworth Estate, 12,000 square feet of white and glass perched on the edge of the Atlantic. Carolyn ran out before the car even stopped. She wore yoga pants and a faded Vanderbilt sweatshirt, her dark hair in a messy bun. She looked exactly like she had at 21. You're here. Carolyn pulled Grace into a careful hug, mindful of her belly. I'm here, Grace said and burst into tears. Welcome home, babe, Carolyn whispered. Carolyn's guest wing was bigger than Grace's entire Nashville apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean, a private bathroom with a soaking tub, a sitting area with bookshelves and soft lighting. This is too much, Grace protested. This is the guest wing. Wait till you see the main house. Now you. Bed, sleep. We'll talk when you're human again. Grace slept for 14 hours straight. When she woke, Carolyn brought her French toast and fresh strawberries. Eat, then sleep more. That's your only job right now. I should be doing something. You're healing. For the first week, that's all Grace did. She slept, ate, and walked the beach with her hand on her growing belly. She didn't talk about Blake. She didn't check Instagram. She just existed, quietly, letting the ocean sounds and Caroline's gentle care knit together the broken pieces of herself. On day 8, Carolyn found Grace in the home office staring at her laptop. "What are you doing?" Carolyn asked, remembering who I was before I became Mrs. Blake Hartford. Grace pointed at the screen, her old certifications, her financial analyst credentials, her master's degree in economics from Vanderbilt. "You were brilliant," Carolyn said to Shayam. "You still are." "I don't feel brilliant. I feel used." "Then let's remind the world who Grace Sullivan is." Carolyn pulled out files on Hartford development. Grace tried to protest, but Caroline insisted. "Just look, please." Grace's analyst brain activated automatically. She recognized the acquisition model immediately. "Wait, I wrote this. On our honeymoon in Cabo, Blake asked me to take a quick look at a deal structure." "Keep looking." Grace flipped through pages. The expansion strategy she'd mapped out on their kitchen table. The risk assessment framework using her methodology. Every major business move Blake had made in the last 10 years used her financial models. "You have emails proving you authored them," Carolyn said, "from your old Vanderbilt account that you forgot existed. But the prenup says separate business assets, but intellectual property created during marriage is marital property in Tennessee. He doesn't own those models, you do." Grace stared at the evidence of her own brilliance, the proof that she'd been the architect of Blake's empire all along. "There's something else," Carolyn said carefully. "Remember the file that PI mentioned? The weird patterns in the 2021 audit? I haven't looked at it. I had my forensic accountant review it. Grace, someone's skimming money from Hartford Development. A lot of money. Blake wouldn't. It's not Blake. The signature is from the CFO account. That's Blake's brother, Todd." Grace felt the world shift again. "How much?" That's $3 million over 3 years. I need time to think." "Take all the time you need. But Grace, you're not the victim in this story. You're the architect." 3 days later, Carolyn convinced Grace to join her for lunch in East Hampton. Grace was 5 months pregnant now, the baby bump unmistakable. "I don't want to be seen," Grace protested. "You're 5 months pregnant and glowing. You're wearing borrowed maternity clothes that cost more than most people's cars, and you're with me. If we're going to remind the world who you are, we need to start by reminding you." Grace looked at herself in the mirror. Simple dove gray cashmere maternity dress. Hair in a low bun, minimal makeup, a small Hermes scarf as a headband. She looked rested, healthy, like herself again. "Okay," Grace said, "let's go." They had lunch at the Palm, an outdoor cafe on Main Street. Caroline met with her hotel manager about a Southampton property while Grace sipped sparkling water with lemon. The sun felt warm on her face. The baby kicked happily. Grace laughed at something Caroline said. Really laughed. For the first time in months, she felt light. She didn't notice the freelance photographer across the street, shooting candids of Caroline Ashworth and her mystery pregnant companion. The photos hit page 6 within 2 hours. Billionaire heiress Caroline Ashworth spotted with unidentified pregnant woman at the Palm in East Hampton. Sources say the two were inseparable, laughing and looking close. Who is the mystery friend? The Daily Mail ran a photo spread. 6 images of Grace and Caroline. Grace looking radiant, peaceful, happy. Then someone in the comments recognized her. Wait, that's Grace Hartford, Blake Hartford's ex-wife. No way, the one he said was mentally unstable? She doesn't look unstable. She looks thriving. Someone posted a side-by-side comparison. The paparazzi shot from 3 weeks ago, Grace looking exhausted. The New Hamptons photo, Grace glowing. Caption, the same woman 3 weeks later. The post got 50,000 shares in 6 hours. Hashtag trending, our Team Grace #Believe Women. Page 6 ran an exclusive that evening. Blake Hartford's unstable ex-wife spotted with billionaire heiress looking anything but broken. The article read, Nashville real estate mogul Blake Hartford claimed his ex-wife Grace was battling mental health issues when he filed for divorce in May. But photos of Grace Sullivan lunching with Caroline Ashworth, heiress to the $2 billion Ashworth Hotel's fortune, tell a different story. Grace, 38 and 5 months pregnant, looked radiant and relaxed. Sources close to Ashworth say the two have been friends since college. Carolyn doesn't do pity friendships, a source told Page 6. If Grace is in her inner circle, that says everything about who the real Grace is. Carolyn burst into Grace's room that evening, iPad in hand. Have you seen? Seen what? Carolyn pulled up the article on the bedroom TV. Grace's face filled the screen. The photo from lunch, her smile genuine, her hand resting protectively on her belly. Grace panicked. Oh my God, Caroline, I didn't want this. I just wanted peace. Read the comments. Grace read, she looks so much healthier. Good for her. Blake Hartford is trash. She deserves better. The way Caroline is looking at her in that photo, that's real friendship. Blake isolated her from everyone. I believe her, not him. They're on my side, Grace whispered. You didn't have to say a word. You just had to show up. That's the power of silence, Grace. The baby kicked hard, as if celebrating, but the celebration was short-lived. The next morning, Blake released an official statement through his PR team. It is with a heavy heart that I must address recent speculation. My ex-wife, Grace Sullivan Hartford, has been battling severe mental health issues throughout our marriage, including anxiety, depression, and concerning behavior that put our unborn child at risk. I attempted to get her help through private counseling, but she refused treatment. When she became a danger to herself and our baby, I had no choice but to end the marriage for the safety of our child. I am currently working with my legal team to seek full custody to ensure my son's well-being. I ask for privacy and prayers during this difficult time. Blake Hartford. Every Nashville outlet picked it up within an hour. Blake Hartford speaks out, ex-wife's mental health crisis led to divorce. Real estate mogul seeks full custody amid ex-wife's breakdown. Blake gave exclusive interviews. I tried to protect her privacy, I really did. But when my son's safety is at stake, I can't stay silent anymore. The photo of Grace in the Hamptons? That's the problem. She's more concerned with appearances than getting the help she needs. Grace read the statements, hyperventilating. Her phone showed 47 missed calls. Her mother, her friends, unknown numbers, reporters. Dr. White, her OBGYN, called. Grace, Blake's lawyer contacted my office requesting your medical records. Can they do that? Not without a court order. But Grace, he's building a custody case. He's going to use your high blood pressure, the anxiety medication you took after your father died 6 years ago. That was 6 years ago. I took it for 6 months. I know. But he's twisting everything. You need a lawyer, a good one. Grace hung up and looked at Caroline. He's not just trying to win the divorce. He's trying to take my baby. Over my dead body, Caroline said. Gloria Martinez's Manhattan law office occupied the 52nd floor of a high-rise. She was 48 years old, a former prosecutor, fierce and brilliant. Ms. Sullivan, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Gloria said, files spread across the conference table. Custody battles where one parent has significantly more resources are difficult. Blake Hartford has unlimited funds. You have $500,000 and dropping fast. He's lying about everything. I know, but we need to prove he's lying in court with evidence, which takes time and money. Money isn't an issue, Caroline said. I'm covering her legal fees. Grace started to protest, but Caroline cut her off. You saved my family's legacy. Let me return the favor. Gloria outlined their strategy. Voluntary drug tests to prove sobriety. Psychiatric evaluation to prove mental competence. Character witnesses. Medical records showing healthy pregnancy. How long will this take? Grace asked. You're what, 5 months pregnant? We need to move fast. Trial date won't be until after the baby is born. But we need to build the case now. Have you ever taken prescription medication for mental health? Gloria asked. Yes, after my father died in 2017, my doctor prescribed Lexapro for situational depression. I took it for 6 months, then stopped. I haven't taken it since. He'll use that. Blake drove me to therapy appointments. He knew and didn't consider me a danger then. He's only saying this now that he wants out. Gloria nodded, making notes. My retainer is $150,000. Total case could run $300,000 to $500,000, depending on how hard he fights. Caroline wrote a check without hesitation. One more thing, Gloria said. Caroline mentioned you have evidence of financial irregularities in Hartford Development. His brother Todd is embezzling. I haven't looked at the full analysis yet. Look at it tonight. If Blake is complicit or even aware, that's leverage. He won't want that going public. That night at 2 a.m., Grace sat in Caroline's home office reviewing the forensic accountant's report. 87 pages of financial analysis. Construction project overruns that didn't match actual spending. Invoices from shell companies with no work product. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. Always signed off by CFO Todd Hartford. But as Grace dug deeper, she found something more. Some transfers had Blake's digital signature. He'd authorized payments to companies that didn't exist. He knew about the embezzlement. He was complicit. Grace cross-referenced public filings and discovered the shell companies were registered to Amber Sinclair. Not as owner, but as registered agent. "Oh my God," Grace whispered. "He's using her too." Blake was funneling Todd's stolen money through companies in Amber's name. If this came out, Amber could be prosecuted. She was the patsy. Grace sat back, hand on her belly. The baby kicked. "What do I do, baby? Do I use this to destroy them both? Or do I save the woman who helped destroy me?" The baby kicked again, harder. "You're right. I can't become him. I won't use her the way he used me." Grace called Jessica, her paralegal friend in Nashville. "I need you to do something for me. Reach out to Amber Sinclair. Tell her I want to meet. Tell her I know about the shell companies." "Grace, are you sure?" "No, but I need to try." 3 days later, Grace and Amber sat across from each other in a small Southampton cafe. Amber looked tired, thinner, nervous. Awkward silence stretched between them. "Why did you want to meet?" Amber finally asked. "Because I think we need to talk, woman to woman. If you're here to yell at me, I'm not. I'm here because I need to understand something. Did you love him, or did you just need him?" Amber's carefully constructed facade cracked. Tears formed in her eyes. "You want the truth? Fine. I was 24 when I met Blake. I'd aged out of foster care at 18. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through community college. I was living in a motel because I couldn't afford first month's rent, plus deposit on an apartment. I was eating ramen for dinner every night." Grace listened. "I entered a pageant because it had a $5,000 prize. I won. Blake was a sponsor. He handed me his card, said he had a job opening. A real job, with benefits, health insurance. I hadn't had health insurance since I was 17. So you took it?" "For the first 6 months, it was just a job. Then he started staying late, asked me to help with presentations, bought me lunch, said his wife didn't understand his work. I was lonely. He was nice, or I thought he was." "What happened?" "One night he kissed me. I said no. He said he was leaving you anyway, that the marriage was over, that you wanted different things. He said you were called in air, distant, that you didn't support his dreams." "I was pregnant when he started the affair," Grace said quietly. Amber's face went white. "What?" "I was 4 months pregnant. He didn't tell you that, did he?" "No, he said you couldn't have kids, that it was a point of contention." "He's been lying to both of us," Amber cried harder. "Grace, I know you hate me, but I need you to know something. I'm not with him because I want to buy anymore." "Then leave." "I can't. I signed a non-disclosure agreement. If I leave before the wedding, I have to pay back $500,000. Money I don't have. If I breach, he'll sue me. I'll be back in that motel." Grace stared at her. "He made you sign an NDA to be his girlfriend?" "It's called a Relationship Services Agreement. I'm technically a brand ambassador for Hartford Development. The relationship is part of my employment contract." "That's not a relationship. That's economic coercion." "I know, but what can I do? I'm trapped." Grace took a deep breath. "Amber, did Blake ever ask you to sign documents for companies? Businesses you didn't understand?" Amber hesitated. "Yes, 2 years ago. He said it was just paperwork, corporate structuring. Those companies are shell corporations. Todd has been embezzling money and funneling it through your companies. If anyone finds out, you're the one who goes to prison. Not him, not Todd, you." Amber went pale. What? He's setting you up. You're the patsy. Why are you telling me this? You could use this to destroy me. Because I've spent 3 months wanting to hate you. But looking at you now, you're not the villain, Amber. Blake is. We're both just women he used. What do I do? I can help you. My lawyer can help you. But only if you're willing to tell the truth about the affair, about the NDA, about the shell companies. He'll destroy me. He's already destroying you. I'm offering you a way out. Amber cried harder. Why would you help me? Because someone should have helped me when I was drowning. And because my son is going to ask me one day what kind of person his mother was. I want to tell him I chose kindness. I'm so sorry, Grace. I'm so sorry. I know, so am I. 1 week later, at 29 weeks pregnant, Grace woke up in the middle of the night with severe cramping. Her vision blurred. She couldn't catch her breath. Caroline, she gasped. Something's wrong. Caroline rushed her to Vanderbilt Medical Center in Nashville. Grace had flown back for an OB/GYN appointment and was staying at Caroline's Nashville hotel. The ER doctor examined her quickly. Grace, you have severe preeclampsia. Blood pressure is 170 over 110. We need to admit you immediately. The baby's heartbeat is strong, but if your blood pressure doesn't come down, we'll have to deliver early. You're 29 weeks. That's very premature. What can we do? Bed rest, medication, monitor constantly, and you need to eliminate stress. Grace laughed bitterly. Stress, right. She was admitted, hooked up to monitors, IV in her arm. Carolyn sat vigil beside her bed. This is my fault, Grace said. The custody battle, the stress, I'm hurting him. My stress is hurting my baby. This is Blake's fault, but I'm the one who can't handle it. He was right, I am unstable. I can't even keep myself healthy for my own child. Grace, stop. A nurse entered. If we have to deliver now, the baby will need NICU, probably 6 to 8 weeks. Lung development at 29 weeks. He could have brain damage, Grace whispered, terrified. Developmental delays. Or he could be fine. Every baby is different, but the longer we can keep him in, the better. That night, a nurse who recognized Grace's name from the news took a photo without permission. Grace in her hospital bed, monitors beeping, looking exhausted. The nurse posted it to Facebook. Saw Blake Hartford's ex-wife in ER tonight. She looks really sick. The photo went viral within hours. Comments divided. This is what stress does. Blake is literally killing her with this custody fight. She's probably faking it for sympathy. Blake's PR team issued a statement. We're concerned for Grace's health and hope she gets the help she needs. This only reinforces our concerns about her ability to provide a stable environment for our child. Grace, alone in her hospital room at 3 a.m., scrolled through comments watching her life become a spectator sport. She looked at the monitors tracking her baby's heartbeat. Steady beep, beep, beep. I can't give up, she whispered. Not now, not ever. She opened her laptop and pulled up the embezzlement files. Her financial analyst's brain took over. Pain faded. This was her weapon. She found what she'd missed before. The embezzlement wasn't just Todd. Blake signed off on some transfers. He knew. He was complicit. Got you, Grace whispered. At 5:30 a.m., still in her hospital bed, Grace called Gloria Martinez. Grace, are you okay? I found it. The embezzlement. Blake isn't just aware. He authorized some of the transfers. He's criminally liable. You're sure? I'm sending you the file now. Wire transfer records with his digital signature. Board meeting minutes where he approved consultant fees that were actually payoffs. Email chains. He's guilty. This is huge. This is leverage. I want to make a deal. Grace requested a video call with Blake. His lawyer arranged it, thinking Grace was giving up. Blake appeared on screen from his office, looking smug. Grace, how are you feeling? I heard you're in the hospital. That's unfortunate. Cut it, Blake. I'm tired. You're tired. Let's end this. I'm glad you're being reasonable. Sign over full custody and we can... I'm not signing over anything. You're going to sign my terms. Blake laughed. Excuse me? Grace shared her screen. Financial records appeared. Blake's face went white. That's your digital signature on 2.3 million in fraudulent transfers. Your email approving shell company payments. You, Blake, embezzlement, wire fraud. If this goes to the SEC, Hartford Development is finished. You're finished. You're bluffing. Try me. I have copies with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. One word from me, and they open an investigation. How long do you think your board keeps you when they find out their CEO is a criminal? Blake's confidence evaporated. Here's what's going to happen, Grace continued. 1, you're going to issue a public apology. You're going to admit you lied about my mental health. 2, you're going to give me 50% ownership of Hartford Development, not as a divorce settlement, but as payment for the intellectual property I created that built your empire. 3, you're going to sign away all custody claims except supervised visitation. 4, you're going to pay all my legal fees. That's insane. I'll never, or I go public. The embezzlement, the affair, the fact that you're setting Amber up to take the fall. You lose everything. Your company, your fiancé, your freedom. You'll be broke and in prison. And you still lose custody because felons don't get their kids. Blake sweated. His lawyer whispered frantically off screen. How do I know you won't publish it anyway? Because unlike you, I keep my promises. You do this and I disappear. You never hear from me again except court-mandated visitation. I rebuild my life. You keep your company, minus my half. We both walk away. Blake was silent for a long moment. Fine, but one condition. I'm not negotiating. Hear me out. Amber, leave her alone. Don't prosecute her. She didn't know about any of this. Grace was surprised. You're protecting her? She's not like you, Grace. She can't fight. If this comes out, she'll be destroyed. Just leave her out of it. You actually care about her. In my own messed up way, yeah, I do. I already told her everything. I'm not pressing charges against her. That's between you and her. She knows? We had coffee. She's trying to figure out how to leave you without ending up homeless. Congratulations, Blake. You managed to hurt both of us. Blake closed his eyes. Send me the paperwork. I'll sign. You have 48 hours. Grace, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. About the baby, about the hospital. I didn't want... Save it. I don't need your apology. I need your signature. Grace ended the call. 1 week later, the settlement came through. Blake signed everything. It was over. Grace had won. But when she read the fine print, she discovered hidden clauses. She retained 50% equity, but no operational control for 10 years. She had profit sharing, but no voting rights. And the non-disparagement clause remained. If she ever spoke publicly about Blake, she'd lose everything. Did you know about these clauses? Grace asked Caroline. Caroline hesitated. Gloria said it was the best deal we could get. You were in the hospital. Your blood pressure was dangerous. We made the call. You made decisions for me without asking me. I was trying to protect you by taking away my choice, just like Blake did, just like everyone in my life. Grace, that's not fair. I need to do this myself. I need to know I can stand on my own. Where will you go? You're 8 months pregnant. Home, Nashville, to my mother's house, to figure out who Grace Sullivan is when she's not being saved. Carolyn's face crumpled. So that's it? I'm not ending our friendship. I just need space to be alone with myself before this baby comes. The offer stands. Always, Carolyn said, wiping tears. Thank you for everything. I mean that. 2 days later, Grace stood on her mother's porch in suburban Nashville, 8 months pregnant, 1 suitcase, coming home. Diane opened the door. Grace? Oh, honey, you're home. Hi, Mama, can I stay here just until the baby comes? This is your home, sweetheart, always. Grace's childhood bedroom looked exactly the same. Faded wallpaper, her old twin bed, photos from high school still on the dresser. Diane had kept it like a shrine. They sat at the kitchen table drinking sweet tea, just like old times. I saw Blake's apology on the news, Diane said. He admitted he lied about you. Took him long enough. Grace, I need to say something. I was wrong, so wrong. When you came to me about the affair, I pressured you to stay, to forgive. I failed you as a mother. Mama, no, let me finish. Blake isn't a man going through a phase. He's a man who tried to destroy you. And I should have told you to leave the first time you cried to me about him. Grace cried, thank you for saying that. I'm here now for whatever you need, and your baby will have a grandmother who actually shows up. Pastor Mitchell visited the next day. Grace met him on the porch. I owe you an apology, he said. When you came to me, I preached endurance. I told you silence was strength. I was wrong. You were trying to help. I was trying to keep the peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace. It's just quiet suffering. And I enabled your suffering. Thank you, Pastor. There's something else. Blake came to see me 3 weeks ago, before your hospital stay. He wanted me to testify in the custody hearing, to say you were unstable, that you'd had emotional outbursts during marriage counseling. And I told him if he ever stepped foot in my church again, I'd expose every lie he told in those sessions, including the one where he admitted the affair and asked me not to tell you because timing wasn't right. He confessed to you? Ministers aren't supposed to break confidentiality, but I'll do it in court if I have to, for you, for the truth. Grace felt something shift. Her community, the one that had failed her, was slowly making amends, but it was bittersweet. The support had come too late. 3 days later, Grace met Amber at a Nashville coffee shop. Grace was 8 months pregnant now, waddling more than walking. Thank you for meeting me, Amber said nervously. I almost didn't. I wanted you to know I ended it with Blake 2 days ago. Grace was surprised. You left him? I couldn't do it anymore. Not after you told me about the shell companies. Not after I realized he was setting me up. And not after he told me I was getting fat. You're not fat. I'm 5'7" and 118 pounds, but he makes me feel like I'm never enough. He did the same to me. Your lawyer, Gloria Martinez, contacted me. Said you gave her my number. She said she could help me break the NDA. If you want to, no pressure. I do. I want to testify against him about the shell companies, the NDA, all of it. It's going to be hard, I know, but you did the hard thing. I'm tired of being scared. Grace learned that Blake was getting married that weekend to someone new, some socialite his mother set up. The wedding was at the country club, big Nashville society event. I'm not going, Grace said, but what if we gave them a different kind of wedding gift? She explained the plan. Gloria had prepared a civil lawsuit against Blake. The evidence could leak during the wedding. You want to ruin his wedding? Amber asked. I want to show Nashville society who he really is, before he traps another woman. Amber smiled slowly. I know the wedding photographer. She owes me a favor. What if the slideshow during the reception had some extra slides? You're devious. I learned from the best, unfortunately. Saturday arrived. Grace wasn't at the wedding. She was 8.5 months pregnant, at her mother's house watching via live stream. But Caroline flew in as her proxy, sitting in the back row with her phone recording. The ceremony proceeded normally. 300 guests, white roses, string quartet, Blake marrying Tiffany Beaumont in a $40,000 Vera Wang dress. Then came the reception, champagne toasts, first dance, Blake's speech about finding his soulmate. And now a surprise, Blake announced, a slideshow celebrating our love story. Sweet photos appeared. Blake and Tiffany at dinner on vacation. Then the images changed. Text appeared on screen. But first, let's talk about Blake's last 2 love stories. The evidence dump began. Blake's text to Amber. She's useful, but boring. The NDA Amber signed. Financial records showing embezzlement with Blake's signature. Emails about making Grace look unstable. Screenshots of Amber's shell company registrations. Gasps filled the room. Blake ran to the AV booth screaming to turn it off. Too late. Everyone was filming on their phones. Tiffany stared at the screen, then at Blake. You told me Grace was crazy, that she was the problem. Tiff, I can explain. Tiffany took off her ring. Explain to your lawyer. She walked out. Caroline stood up. For those wondering, I'm Caroline Ashworth, Grace Sullivan's best friend. Grace couldn't be here today. She's 8 months pregnant and on bed rest, but she wanted me to deliver a message. Carolyn walked to the front while security blocked Blake. Blake Hartford is a liar, a fraud, and an abuser. Not with his fists, but with his words, his manipulation, his systematic destruction of women's self-worth. Grace Sullivan built his empire. Amber Sinclair was coerced into his crimes, and Tiffany Beaumont just dodged a bullet. Oh, and Blake, the FBI has these documents too. Enjoy your honeymoon in court. 43 guests filmed the slideshow. It hit Instagram within minutes. Hashtag Blake Hartford. Exposed trended nationally within an hour. That night, Grace watched the viral videos from her mother's house. She saw Blake's panicked face, Tiffany walking punches, Caroline defending her. Your mama's friends came through, baby boy, Grace said to her belly. Sudden contraction, hard, sharp. Oh, oh no. Grace, Diane rushed in. What's wrong? I think it's time. At Vanderbilt Hospital, Grace labored through the night. Diane held her hand. Caroline raced from the country club, calling on FaceTime from her car. Grace, I'm 20 minutes away. Hold on. I can't exactly hold it. Grace gasped through another contraction. Did you see Blake's face? It was glorious. Grace laughed through pain. He's finished. Oh, on another contraction. I need to push. Then push, honey, the nurse said. Grace pushed with everything she had, screaming, crying, fighting for her son. One more push, big one. Grace gave everything. A baby's cry filled the room. It's a boy, healthy lungs. They placed the baby on Grace's chest. She sobbed, holding him. Hi, baby. Hi. I'm your mama. I'm your mama, and I fought for you. I fought so hard. What's his name? Diane asked. Grace looked at her son. James Sullivan, after my father. No Hartford, just Sullivan. Your dad would be so proud, Diane cried. Hours later, alone with baby James, Grace ignored 247 text messages and 89 missed calls. Except one. Text from Amber. Congratulations, Grace. You earned this peace. Thank you for saving me. Grace smiled, looking at her son. They say you can't have it all, she whispered. That you have to choose between being strong and being kind. Between winning and keeping your soul. But I learned something. You can be kind and strong. You can win without becoming the monster. You just have to know when to be silent and when to roar. 1 year later, the small cafe in Charlottesville, Virginia, had become Grace's favorite spot. She sat at an outdoor table, laptop open, baby James in his stroller beside her, 14 months old now, babbling happily. Her website was up. Sullivan Financial, empowering women through financial literacy. She was building something new, something hers. Text from Caroline. Thinking about you today. James's first birthday party was perfection. Sorry I missed it. Stuck in London. Still friends? Grace typed, always friends, just needed to define myself first. Come visit next month? Carolyn, already booked my flight. A news alert appeared. Blake Hartford, sentenced to 7 years for wire fraud and embezzlement. Hartford Development sold to Ashworth Hotels Group. Grace closed it without reacting. She'd moved on. Another alert. Amber Sinclair publishes memoir, The Contract Girl. Book debuts at number 3 on bestseller list. Grace smiled. Amber had found her voice. Text from Amber. Grace, I'm in Richmond doing book tour. Can I visit? I'd love to meet James. Grace, yes. Sunday lunch? Amber, see you then. Thank you for everything. Email from Gloria Martinez. Your share of the Hartford development sale, $23.4 million. Wiring to your account. Grace stared at the number, then typed. Donate $10 million to National Domestic Violence Hotline. $5 million to foster care system in Kentucky for Amber. Keep the rest in trust for James. A young woman approached her table. 32, pregnant, scared. Miss Sullivan, I saw your talk online about financial abuse. I think my husband is doing that to me. Grace gestured to the empty chair. Tell me what's happening. He controls all the money. I don't even have access to our bank accounts. He says it's because I'm bad with numbers, but I have a degree in accounting. You're not bad with numbers. He's trying to make you feel dependent. Let me see your financial documents. The woman pulled out papers. Grace analyzed them quickly. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we'd open an account in your name only. Later at the park, Grace pushed James on the baby swings. He laughed, reaching for clouds. Another mom approached. Your son is adorable. How old? 14 months. You? 18 months. I'm Sarah. Just moved to the area. Grace, welcome to Charlottesville. Wait, Grace Sullivan? The financial consultant? I read about you. You took down that Nashville real estate guy. Grace felt uncomfortable. That was a long time ago. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's okay. I'm just trying to be a mom now and help other women not make my mistakes. For what it's worth, you're kind of a hero to a lot of us. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of being silent. That evening, Grace gave James a bath in their small apartment. Nothing like the Belmead mansion, but it was hers. Safe. Real. She wrapped him in a towel, carried him to his nursery, sat in the rocking chair nursing him. Simple room, clean and warm. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Message. Grace. It's Blake. I'm out in 5 years with good behavior. We need to talk about James's visitation rights. I'm still his father. Call my lawyer. Grace stared at the message. Her hand trembled. James threw a toy, she laughed. She looked at her son, then back at the phone. She deleted the message without responding. He thinks this is unfinished, she whispered. That I owe him a response. But I don't. I don't owe him anything except the truth when you're old enough to ask about your daddy. And I'll tell you, your daddy made choices, and I made mine. I chose you, I chose me, and I chose peace. She looked out the window at the Charlottesville sunset. Some battles never fully end. Blake's text proves that. He'll always be there in the background, trying to exert control, but I'm not waiting for his next move anymore. I'm living. I'm building. I'm teaching my son that silence isn't weakness. It's knowing when to save your voice for the moments that matter. She kissed James's forehead as he fell asleep in her arms. They asked me once if I regret staying silent for so long. My answer, no. I stayed silent until I had power. That's not surrender, that's strategy. And when I finally spoke, the whole world listened. 6 months passed in quiet routines. Grace's consulting business grew steadily. She helped 12 women navigate divorces, 17 more understand their family finances. She spoke at women's shelters. She trained paralegal students. She built a life brick by brick. James took his first steps on a Tuesday afternoon in their apartment living room. Grace cried happy tears, called Caroline immediately, texted Amber the video. Caroline visited monthly now. They'd walk the downtown mall, James in his stroller, talking about everything and nothing. Their friendship had healed, stronger for having been tested. Amber came for Thanksgiving. She brought her new girlfriend, a social worker she'd met at a book signing. They cooked together in Grace's small kitchen, laughing about burnt rolls and overcooked turkey. James sat in his high chair, throwing mashed potatoes. I never thought I'd have this, Amber said quietly, watching Grace wipe James's face. A real family, people who chose me. We all deserve to be chosen, Grace said. It just took us a while to learn that. In January, Grace received an invitation. The National Domestic Violence Coalition wanted to honor her at their annual gala for her work helping women achieve financial independence. I don't deserve an award, Grace told Carolyn on the phone. You absolutely do. You turned your trauma into purpose. That's extraordinary. I just do what I can. That's exactly why you deserve it. Grace flew to Washington for the gala. She wore a simple navy dress, nothing fancy. She gave a 5-minute speech that made 300 people cry. I stayed silent for years, she said into the microphone. Not because I was weak, but because I was waiting. Waiting until I had the power to be heard. Waiting until my voice could change things. Silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. And when we finally speak, we make the world listen. Standing ovation, cameras flashing. But Grace only cared about one thing, the text message waiting on her phone backstage. From Diane, watching the live stream with James, he clapped for his mama. We're so proud of you, baby girl. Grace smiled, tears in her eyes. Spring came to Charlottesville. Cherry blossoms bloomed along the streets. James turned at 18 months old, talking in short sentences now. Mama, book, more. Grace took him to the park every afternoon. They'd swing, slide, chase birds. Simple pleasures. The kind Grace had forgotten existed during her marriage. One April morning, a reporter found her. Young woman, mid-20s, eager. Ms. Sullivan, I'm writing a story about women who've rebuilt their lives after financial abuse. Would you be willing to? No, Grace said gently but firmly. I appreciate what you're doing, but my story isn't for sale. My piece isn't content. But you could help so many. I do help, every day in my own way, without cameras. The reporter looked disappointed but nodded. I understand. For what it's worth, my mother left an abusive marriage last year. Your name gave her courage to call a lawyer. So thank you. Grace felt her throat tighten. Tell your mother she's brave, and she's going to be okay. I will. After the reporter left, I'll say get there, Grace sat on a park bench watching James play. She thought about all the women she'd never meet who'd been helped by her story. All the conversations happening in kitchens and living rooms across the country because she'd been brave enough to fight back. Maybe her silence first, then her voice, had mattered more than she'd realized. In May, Grace received notice that Blake had been transferred to a federal facility in Texas. His appeal had been denied. He'd serve his full 7 years. She felt nothing reading the update. Not satisfaction, not anger, just a quiet sense of closure. The past was the past. She'd taken what she'd learned and built something better. Carolyn called that evening. Did you see the news about Blake? I saw. How do you feel? Honestly, I don't feel much of anything. He's not part of my life anymore. He's just a cautionary tale I'll tell James when he's old enough to understand. What will you tell him? Grace thought about Denison, that his father was human, flawed, that he made choices that hurt people, but also that people can learn and change. That redemption is possible if someone truly wants it. I'll tell him the truth, as much as he can handle at whatever age he asks. You're a good mom, Grace. I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. Summer arrived, Grace's second year in Charlottesville. She'd made friends, other moms at the park, women in her business networking group, neighbors who'd wave from their porches. She had community again. Real community. People who knew her as Grace Sullivan, not as Blake Hartford's ex-wife or Caroline Ashworth's charity case. Just Grace. Consultant. Mother. Friend. One afternoon in July, Grace took James to the library for story time. A little boy his age toddled over, offering a toy truck. James squealed with delight. The boys played together while their mothers watched. First play date? The other mom asked. I think so, Grace said, swooshing. They're adorable together. We should exchange numbers. Maybe schedule more play dates. I'd love that. Such a simple thing, making a friend, planning a play date. But to Grace, it meant everything. It meant she was building a life, not recovering from her old one, not surviving, actually living. That night, after James fell asleep, Grace sat on her small balcony with a cup of tea. She watched stars appear into the darkening sky. Her phone buzzed. Text from a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Sullivan, my name is Patricia. I got your number from the women's shelter downtown. I'm going through a divorce and I'm terrified. My husband controls everything. I don't even know where to start. Can you help me? Grace looked at the message for a long moment. She thought about herself 2 years ago. Terrified, alone, desperate for someone to tell her she wasn't crazy. She typed, yes, I can help. Let's talk tomorrow. You're going to be okay. I promise. 3 dots appeared. Then, thank you, I needed to hear that. Grace set down her phone and looked at the stars again. This was her purpose now, this quiet work of helping women find their strength, not for glory or recognition, just because she could, because she understood. The next morning, Grace woke to James climbing into her bed at 6 a.m. Mama, up! She pulled him close, breathing in his baby shampoo scent. Good morning, sweet boy. Park? After breakfast. They went through their morning routine, pancakes, bath, getting dressed, which took forever because James insisted on putting on his own shoes and they kept ending up on the wrong feet. Grace laughed, fixing them for the third time. You're determined, aren't you? Like Mama, James said proudly. Grace's heart swelled. That's right, baby, like Mama. At the park, James ran straight for the swings. Grace pushed him, listening to his delighted giggles. Another mom approached with her daughter. Is this seat taken? She asked, gesturing to the empty swing. All yours. They pushed their children in comfortable silence for a while. Then the woman spoke quietly. I saw you speak in D.C. at the Domestic Violence Gala. I was there with my sister. She's leaving her husband. Grace nodded, still pushing James. How is she doing? Scared but determined. Your speech helped her understand she wasn't alone. She's not alone. None of us are. We just forget sometimes. Thank you for speaking up. I know it costs something to share your story. Grace thought about that. It does, but staying silent costs more. Sometimes you have to decide which price you're willing to pay. The woman nodded, understanding. That afternoon, Grace had coffee with Patricia, the woman who'd texted. They met at the same cafe where Grace worked most mornings. Patricia was 35, a teacher, married 15 years to a man who'd slowly taken control of every aspect of her life. Grace listened to a story that could have been her own. Then she opened her laptop and showed Patricia how to access financial records, how to open a secret bank account, how to document everything. You're not crazy, Grace said firmly. You're being abused, and you can get out. I'll help you. Patricia cried. I thought I was the only one. You're not. Trust me. You're so not. Over the next 3 months, Grace helped Patricia navigate her divorce. She connected her with Gloria Martinez. She testified as a character witness. She was there the day Patricia signed her final divorce papers. Free at last. I don't know how to thank you, Patricia said, hugging Grace tight. Pay it forward. When you meet another woman who's scared and alone, you help her. That's how we change things. One woman at a time. In November, Grace celebrated James's second birthday. Small party in her apartment. Caroline, Amber, and her girlfriend, Diane, Jessica, and Ryan. Patricia and her kids, Sarah from the park, a handful of other friends, simple decorations, grocery store cake, kids running everywhere. Perfect chaos. Grace looked around her crowded living room and felt overwhelming gratitude. This was what she'd fought for. Not revenge, not vindication, just this. Community, love, peace. Speech, Carolyn called out, raising her plastic cup of apple juice. Oh no, speech! Speech! Everyone joined in. Grace stood holding James on her hip. He played with her hair, oblivious to the attention. Okay, she laughed. I just want to say thank you. 2 years ago, I didn't think I'd survive. I was broken, alone, terrified. But I'm standing here today because of all of you. Because you chose to show up for me when I needed it most. Because you reminded me who I was when I'd forgotten. Because you loved me back to life. She paused, composing herself. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Blake will try to be part of James's life when he gets out. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from everything that happened. But I know this. I'm not defined by what was done to me. I'm defined by what I chose to do next. And I chose love. I chose forgiveness. Not for Blake, but for myself. I chose to turn my pain into purpose. And I chose all of you. She raised her cup. To second chances, to chosen family. To the women who refused to stay silent. To Grace, everyone cheered. That night, after everyone left and James was asleep, Grace stood in her small kitchen, washing dishes. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Grace, it's Tiffany. Tiffany Beaumont, Blake's almost wife from the wedding. Grace froze. Tiffany, hi. How did you get my number? Amber gave it to me. I hope that's okay. I read her book. I needed to call you to apologize. You don't need to apologize to me. I do. At the wedding, before everything went down, I believed him. About you being unstable. About you being the problem. I was so ready to be his next victim, and I didn't even see it. You saved me that day. The slideshow, the evidence, all of it. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Grace sat down, processing this. I'm glad you got out. I'm in therapy now, dealing with my own patterns. Why I kept choosing men like him. Amber's book helped me understand things. And your story, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that what you did mattered. You probably saved my life. Grace felt tears forming. Thank you for telling me that. How's your baby? He's perfect. Turns 2 today. Happy birthday to him. And Grace, happy birthday to you too. This is your rebirth just as much as his birth. You should celebrate that. After they hung up, Grace sat in the quiet darkness of her apartment. Tiffany was right. This was her rebirth. Every day she woke up and chose herself was a birth. Every woman she helped was a birth. Every moment she refused to be defined by her trauma was a birth. She walked to James's room, watched him sleep peacefully, his little chest rising and falling, his tiny hand clutching his stuffed bear. We made it, baby, she whispered. We actually made it. December brought the first snow. Grace bundled James in his winter coat and took him out to experience it. He squealed with delight, trying to catch snowflakes on his tongue. Cold, Mama. Yes, baby, but beautiful too, right? Beautiful, he repeated, testing out the word. That night, Grace's phone buzzed. Email from the National Domestic Violence Coalition. They wanted her to speak at their annual conference in the spring. Would she be interested? Grace thought about it for a long time, about whether she wanted to keep telling her story, about whether she'd healed enough, about what message she wanted to send. She typed her response, yes, I'll speak, but I want to talk about what comes after. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just getting out, but building something new. Is that okay? Response came within minutes. That's exactly what we need. Thank you, Grace. On Christmas morning, Grace woke to James jumping on her bed. Mama! Mama! Santa! They went to the living room where a small tree stood with a few wrapped presents underneath. Nothing extravagant, just thoughtful gifts from family and friends. James ripped into them with abandon. Books, blocks, a toy truck. He was delighted with everything. Diane came over for breakfast. They cooked together, made cinnamon rolls, watched old movies. Simple. Perfect. You've built a good life here, Diane said, watching James play with his new toys. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Thank you, Mama, for believing in me. Finally. I always believed in you. I just forgot how to show it. But I see you now, Grace. I see exactly how strong you've always been. That evening, after Diane left and James was in bed, Grace opened her laptop. She started writing. Not for publication, not for anyone else, just for herself. She wrote about the last 2 years, about the pain and the healing, about the women she'd helped and the lessons she'd learned, about James and motherhood and finding yourself when you thought you were lost forever. She wrote about forgiveness, not forgiving Blake, because she wasn't sure she had or ever would, but forgiving herself for staying too long, for not seeing the signs, for believing his lies, for all the ways she'd been complicit in her own diminishment. She wrote until her fingers cramped and her eyes burned. Then she saved the document in a folder labeled My Story and closed her laptop. Maybe someday she'd share it, maybe not. For now, it was enough that she'd written it, that she'd named her pain and claimed her triumph. The new year arrived quietly. Grace didn't go to any parties. She stayed home with James, watched the ball drop on TV, made popcorn. At midnight, she kissed his sleeping forehead and whispered resolutions. This year, I'm going to keep growing, keep helping, keep healing. And I'm going to teach you that gentle doesn't mean weak. That kind doesn't mean pushover. That silence can be powerful when you choose it yourself. In January, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Tennessee State Prison. Grace stared at it, heart pounding. She knew who it was. Blake had been given phone privileges. This was his first call. She let it ring, didn't answer, didn't call back. 20 minutes later, a voicemail notification appeared. Grace deleted it without listening. She'd said everything she needed to say. She'd given him all the chances he deserved. Now it was time to move forward without looking back. February brought Grace's 30th speaking engagement. She'd become a regular on the circuit, women's shelters, legal aid conferences, university panels, Always the same message. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You can rebuild. After one event, a young woman approached her, maybe 23. I'm in it right now. What you described. My boyfriend controls everything, but I love him. How did you stop loving Blake? Grace thought carefully before answering. I didn't stop loving him. That's the secret nobody tells you. You don't have to stop loving them. You just have to love yourself more. The love might always be there in some form, but self-love has to be louder. The girl nodded, tears streaming. How do I start? You already did. You showed up here today. That's the first step. Acknowledging something's wrong. Now you take the next step, and then the next. Baby steps, but they add up. Thank you. Come find me after. I'll give you my number. You don't have to do this alone. In March, spring arrived. Grace planted flowers in pots on her balcony. James helped, getting more dirt on himself than in the pots. They laughed, made a mess, didn't care. Growing, mama. That's right, baby. Everything grows with enough love and patience. She thought about those words later. Everything grows. She was proof. 2 years ago, she'd been withered, dying inside. Now she was blooming. Different than before. Scarred, certainly, but stronger. More authentically herself. April brought James's second birthday in Grace's speaking engagement in Washington. She stood at the podium in front of 800 people. I want to talk about something we don't discuss enough, she began. The aftermath. Everyone wants to know how you survived, but nobody asks, how do you thrive? She shared her story, not dwelling on the trauma, but focusing on the rebuilding. The community she'd found, the purpose she'd discovered, the peace she'd fought for. Survival isn't enough, she said. We deserve more than just surviving. We deserve joy. We deserve peace. We deserve to look at our children and know we gave them better. That's what healing looks like, not forgetting the pain, using it as fertilizer for growth. Standing ovation. But Grace barely noticed. She was looking at the front row where Caroline sat, holding James, both of them beaming with pride. After the speech, reporters swarmed. Grace answered a few questions, then excused herself. She had more important things to do, like take her son to the museum, like live her life. That night in the hotel room, James asleep in the adjoining room, Grace checked her email. One message stood out. Dear Ms. Sullivan, my name is Dr. Rachel Cooper. I'm a researcher at Yale studying post-traumatic growth in domestic abuse survivors. I'd love to interview you for my study. Your story represents something important, not just resilience, but transformation. Would you be willing to participate? Grace thought about it. Then she typed, yes, but only if my participation helps other women. I'm not interested in being a case study. I want to be part of the solution. Dr. Cooper responded within the hour. That's exactly why your participation would be valuable. You've already shifted from victim to advocate. That's the transformation I'm studying. They scheduled a call for the following week. May arrived with warm weather and longer days. Grace's business had grown enough that she could hire an assistant, a recent college graduate named Maya, who'd been a domestic violence survivor herself. I want to do what you do, Maya said on her first day. Help women find their power. Then you're in the right place. Welcome to the team. Together, they helped 30 women that month navigate financial independence, some going through divorces, some just beginning to realize they needed to, each one brave in her own way. One afternoon, Grace got a call from Gloria Martinez. Grace, I have news. Blake's attorney reached out. He wants to arrange supervised visitation with James when he gets out. Grace's stomach clenched. It's still 3 years away. He's planning ahead, trying to establish paternal rights now so they're in place when he's released. What do you want to do? I want to talk to my therapist and think about what's best for James. Not what's easiest for me, but what's actually best for my son. That's wise. Take your time. We don't have to respond immediately. Grace spent the next week in deep contemplation. She talked to her therapist. She called Caroline. She prayed. She journaled. She asked herself hard questions. Did James deserve to know his father? Yes. Did Blake deserve a relationship with his son? That was more complicated. What was right? In the end, Grace wrote a letter to Blake through his attorney. When you get out, We can discuss supervised visitation, but you need to understand something. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for James, because he deserves to make his own decisions about you when he's old enough. I won't lie to him about who you are, but I also won't poison him against you. That's not who I am. You'll have to earn his respect yourself. And that starts with earning mine, with showing me you've changed, with proving you understand the harm you caused. If you can do that, we'll talk. If not, you'll be the man in the old photographs James asks about, and I'll tell him the truth. You chose everything that mattered more than him. Now it's your turn to choose differently. She sent the letter and felt peace about it. She'd done the right thing, the mature thing, the thing that prioritized her son's well-being over her own anger. That's growth, she thought. That's healing. Summer came again. Grace's third summer in Charlottesville. James was talking in full sentences now, asking constant questions, observing everything. Mama, why was Daddy not here? The question Grace had been dreading. She sat down with him in his room, chose her words carefully. Daddy made some choices that hurt people. When we hurt people, sometimes we have consequences. Daddy's consequences mean he had to go away for a while, but it doesn't mean he doesn't love you. People can love us and still make bad choices. Will Daddy come back? Someday, when you're older, and you'll get to decide how much you want to know him. Okay, Mama. James went back to playing with his blocks, satisfied with this explanation for now. Grace knew harder questions would come. When he was 5, 10, 15, she'd answer them all honestly, age-appropriately, never making Blake the villain but never erasing his responsibility either. That was her job now, to raise a son who understood that people were complicated, that love wasn't enough without respect and accountability, that gentleness was strength and silence could be power, and sometimes the bravest thing you could do was walk away. In August, Grace received an invitation to speak at Vanderbilt. Her alma mater wanted her to give the keynote at their women's leadership conference. She accepted immediately. Standing in the auditorium where she'd attended economics lectures 20 years ago felt surreal. Grace looked out at hundreds of young women, bright-eyed and hopeful. I graduated from this school 18 years ago, she began. I was top of my class. I had job offers from 3 investment banks. I thought I had everything figured out. And then I fell in love with someone who made me forget I'd ever been smart. That's what abuse does. It makes you forget who you were before. She told her story, not to scare them, but to prepare them, to help them recognize the signs, to empower them to trust their instincts. You will meet people who try to diminish you, who are threatened by your intelligence, your success, your light. Don't dim yourself for them. Don't shrink. If someone makes you feel like you're too much, they're not enough. That's not about you. That's about them. After the speech, a young woman approached. I'm a sophomore. My boyfriend keeps telling me I study too much, that I care more about grades than him, but I have a scholarship. I can't let my GPA drop. Then don't, Grace said firmly, and lose the boyfriend. Anyone who wants you to sacrifice your future for their ego isn't someone who loves you. They're someone who wants to control you. Run. Thank you, I needed to hear that. Grace watched her walk away and felt proud. Maybe she'd just saved that girl from a decade of pain. Maybe not. But she'd planted a seed. Sometimes that was enough. September brought change. Maya, Grace's assistant, got accepted to law school. I want to be a family law attorney, she explained. Help women through divorces. Because of what you taught me. Grace hugged her tight. I'm so proud of you. You're going to be amazing. She hired a new assistant, another survivor. The cycle continued. Woman helping woman helping woman. That's how change happened. Slowly, personally, one life at a time. October arrived. James turned 2.5. Grace's consulting business celebrated its 2nd anniversary. She'd helped over 300 women navigate financial independence. She sat at her laptop one evening, updating her website, and realized something. She was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. Not despite everything that had happened, because of it. The pain had taught her, the struggle had strengthened her. The breaking had allowed her to rebuild herself into someone she actually liked. She would never thank Blake for what he'd done, But she could thank herself for how she'd responded, for choosing healing over bitterness, for turning her wounds into wisdom. That was the real victory. Not destroying him, becoming herself. November brought an unexpected letter from Blake. Maya had screened it first as Grace requested for all mail from him. It seems genuine, Maya said, but I'll leave it to you whether to read it. Grace opened it carefully, prepared to throw it away at the first hint of manipulation. Grace, I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that prison has given me time to think about what I've done, to really see it clearly for the first time. I destroyed you. I used you. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too selfish and immature to recognize it. I'm in therapy now. Court mandated it first, but I've continued voluntarily. I'm learning about narcissistic personality disorder, about emotional abuse, about how I treated the women in my life. It doesn't excuse anything, but maybe it explains it. I want to be better, not for any reward. I'll never deserve your forgiveness. But because James deserves a father who's actually worth knowing, I'm trying to become that person. Thank you for the possibility of supervised visitation. I'll earn it, I promise. Blake. Grace read the letter 3 times. She felt nothing, no anger, no hope, just neutral acknowledgement that he was taking steps. Whether those steps were genuine or just another manipulation, time would tell. She didn't have to decide now. She could wait and see. She filed the letter away and went to play with James. That was what mattered, the present, not the past or the uncertain future. Just this moment, her son's laughter, the life they were building together. December brought the holidays again. Grace's 3rd Christmas in Charlottesville. She decorated more this year, put up a real tree, invited everyone she cared about for Christmas Eve dinner. Her small apartment overflowed with people and laughter. Caroline, Amber, and her girlfriend, now fiancée, Diane, Jessica, and Ryan visiting from Nashville, Patricia and her kids, Sarah from the park, Maya, Dr. Cooper from Yale, even Tiffany, who'd become an unexpected friend. Grace looked around at her full living room and felt overwhelming gratitude. 2 years ago, she'd been alone. Now she had this: community, family, love. Speech, Carolyn called out, just like last year. Again? Grace laughed. Tradition. Grace stood, James on her hip as always. Okay, short one. I just want to say that sometimes we have to lose everything to find what really matters. I lost a marriage, a home, my social standing, almost my health, and my son. But I found myself, and I've found all of you in that trade. That was worth it. I'd do it all over again to end up here in this moment with these people. Thank you for loving me when I couldn't love myself, for believing in me when I'd stopped believing, for showing me that family isn't just blood, it's choice. And I choose every single person in this room. She raised her glass. To chosen family, to second chances, to new beginnings. To Grace! Everyone cheered. Later that night, after everyone left and James was asleep, Grace sat on her balcony wrapped in a blanket despite the cold. She looked at the stars and felt at peace. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Miss Sullivan, my name is Jennifer. I got your number from the women's shelter. I'm ready to leave my husband. Can you help me? Grace looked at the message. She thought about saying no, that it was Christmas, that she needed a break. But she remembered being Jennifer, desperate, scared, alone. She typed, yes, I can help. Let's talk after the holidays. And Jennifer, you're so brave. The hardest part is deciding to leave. Everything else is just details. You've already done the hardest thing. 3 dots. Then, thank you. Merry Christmas. Grace, Merry Christmas. Your new life starts now. She sent the text and smiled. This was her purpose. This work of catching women as they fell and helping them remember they could fly. She went inside, checked on James one more time. He slept peacefully, clutching his stuffed bear, safe and loved. We did it, baby, Grace whispered. We built something beautiful from all that broken, and we're going to be okay. Better than okay. We're going to be happy. She kissed his forehead and went to her own room. Before bed, she opened her journal and wrote one final entry for the year. Today, I'm grateful for pain that taught me, struggle that strengthened me, breaking that allowed rebuilding. I'm grateful for silence that became power when I chose my moment to speak. I'm grateful for the women who caught me when I fell and the ones I've caught since. I'm grateful for James, for Caroline, for Amber, for every person who chose to show up for me when I needed it most. But mostly, I'm grateful that I chose to show up for myself. That I fought for my own life even when it seemed pointless. That I believed I deserved better even when everyone told me to settle. That's the real victory. Not that Blake went to prison or that I got money or that I won, but that I remembered who I was. That I reclaimed myself. That I chose grace over bitterness, literally and figuratively. That's what I want James to remember about his mother. Not that she survived, that she thrived, that she turned her wounds into wisdom and her pain into purpose, that she taught him gentle strength and powerful silence, that she showed him love looks like respect and integrity and choosing what's right even when it's hard. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know if Blake will change or if he'll just get better at pretending. I don't know if James will want a relationship with his father or if he'll choose to keep him at a distance. I don't know if I'll fall in love again or if I'll spend the rest of my life happily single. But I know this, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do, being exactly who I was always supposed to become. And that's everything. She closed the journal and turned off the light. In the darkness, she heard James's soft breathing from the next room, the sound of peace, of home, of new beginnings. Grace fell asleep smiling, grateful for everything that had brought her to this moment. The pain and the healing, the breaking and the rebuilding, the silence and the voice, all of it, every single moment, had led her here, to peace, to purpose, to herself, and that was the real ending. Not revenge, not vindication, just peace, just living well, just being. That was enough, more than enough. That was everything.